Hi everyone, welcome to another video on Gateway to Voice. My name is Rahmathullah Muhammad, CEO to Gateway to Voice. In today's video, I will be teaching you the basic CCNA voice concept, which will be really helpful for the voice starters. Before we start looking into our lab design, let me focus our teaching on the IP phone startup process. As you can see from this video, from this picture which is displayed on your screen, this is an IP phone startup process wherein the IP phone goes into different stages in order to obtain the IP addresses, its configuration files, and in order to get registered with CME router. To start looking into it, when the IP phone is connected to a switch, which the switch should be a power on Ethernet switch, which can provide a power to IP phones. As soon as it's connected to the switch, it's provided with a power on Ethernet line, which makes the IP phone boot from its own iOS images. Once this process is finished, then their respective VLANs information is given to IP phone. So the IP phone gets the VLAN information. In that VLAN information, the VLANs provide the information about its DHCP router or server IP address and Cisco's images of IP phones. So once the VLAN information are being provided to the IP phones goes to the DHCP and get the IP address for it. Apart from getting the IP addresses, DHCP also provides option 150, which is information, or you can say the IP address of the TFTP server, where these images of phones are located. So once the IP address is given, then IP phones goes to Cisco's or TFTP server to get the ISO or the images or the configurations from TFTP server. Once it gets the configuration from TFTP server, then it gets registered to CME router. So this is the IP phone startup process, which is really important for troubleshooting purpose as well as the new starters who are making their career in voice. Now look at our network design. Based on the previous IP startup process information, I have defined my network, my lab, wherein I am using two routers. One act as a CME router, one act as a DHCP router. On the same CME router, act as a TFTP server as well. I am using two switches which are interconnected with each other via trunk. And switch 1, fast Ethernet 0/0, is connected to router fast Ethernet 0/0 in trunk mode, and fast Ethernet 0/1 of switch is connected to DHCP fast Ethernet 0/0 in access mode. Before we start looking the configuration of CME, we need to look into switch configuration. And switches, we create two VLANs, one for the data VLAN and one for the voice VLAN. The only reason, or the basic reason, important reason of creating the VLANs is to define what sort of data or what sort of traffic is given to IP phones and data network. As you know that if we create a VLAN, we can establish a broadcast, like limited broadcast to a limited area. So on switches I have created two VLANs, one for the voice VLAN with VLAN number 10 and another for data traffic with VLAN number 50. So as and switch 1 is being provided with a domain name of voice and its mode will be server mode, whereas on the other side switch 2, it gets the information from our VLAN from switch 1 via trunk interfaces which are connected to each other, and we create the switch 2 mode, VTP mode, in client mode, which means we cannot create or delete any VLANs. Then this switch is again connected to 3 different workstations which I have installed on my VMware machines. On these VMware machines I have installed IP Communicator 7.0 version which act as the IP phones to me. So I hope that you have got the brief overview of the network design. Now let's focus on our configuration of this design. Here we are on GNS3, the same network design as we have seen in our previous slides. Now that this configuration is not yet done, only the connectivity, like only the connection is been provided, we just start the routers. Okay, as I said you, before configuring CME router we have to configure the VLANs in the switch. So I goes into switch goes into enable mode, goes to VLAN database, and create VLANs 10 name voice. Okay, then we also create a VLAN 50 for data traffic. Okay, and we define the VTP domain voice, and we will define VTP mode, VTP server. Okay, we are making this switch as VTP server. Okay, then we will apply and exit. Okay, the next step is to squeeze this one. Next step is to make port, goes into configuration file, goes to fast Ethernet 0/0 and make it as a VTP switch port mode as trunk, switch port trunk encapsulation .1q. Okay, and we will goes to interface fast Ethernet 0/1. We'll make this port as access port itself. Okay, once this configuration is done, we have now configured the switches. So in order to look for VLANs, we see that we have created two VLANs, one for the voice and one for the data, and these ports, fast Ethernet 0/0 is a trunk port, so it cannot be shown in a VLAN. fast Ethernet 0/0 is the access port, that's why, and we have not given it to data VLAN. We are not yet assigned that fast Ethernet 0/1 to data VLAN. We will doing it in a moment. That gives the brief description about VLANs. Now we move on to CME router. Goes to its configuration, enable config T, goes into fast Ethernet 0/0. Okay, no IP address and no shut. Okay, and encapsulation so we says that we haven't defined any IP address on the physical interface, so we goes into sub interface F0/0 with 10, which gives a description that this is a VLAN, this port is for VLAN. Goes to encapsulation, okay, .1q with VLAN number 10. Okay, and IP address is 12.12.10.1 is 24-bit mask. Okay, and we give a description, connection to VLAN 10 for voice. Okay, we will create one more sub interface for data traffic. Okay, with encapsulation .1q VLAN 50, sorry, with IP address 12.12.50.1 with 24-bit mask, and description, connection to VLAN 50 for data. Okay, exit. But if you know that in order to communicate with DHCP, whenever the phone comes up, checks the VLAN, goes into the VLAN, when it goes to into the voice VLAN, okay, it needs to be defined the IP address. So we need to give a helper address of DHCP wherein from where they can able to get their IP addresses. So if it goes into sub interface first Ethernet 0/0.10, okay, we will define IP DHCP helper address. Where is it? IP helper address, okay, which will be other side connection, which is DHCP address. Okay, we have defined it, goes to exit mode, goes to exit. Okay, now we will configure the DHCP router. Okay, enable mode. One more thing you need to consider: when you define the IP addresses, you need to make sure that some range of IP addresses needs to be reserved for other sort of servers to connect. So in our example, I will define IP DHCP excluded addresses, which means that these addresses cannot be used while giving IP addresses to the IP phones. So I will define a range and one more range for data. The above one was for the voice and this one is for the data VLANs. Okay, which means that the ranges between 12.12.10.1 to 12.12.10.10 cannot be used. IP addresses between these ranges should not be used. Apart from this, the IP addresses can be used. So we have defined, so I have defined for both voice as well as for data network. Okay, next step is to define pool of addresses, so which is IP DHCP pool. We define it as voice. Okay, and define the network as 12.10.11 with 24-bit mask. Okay, and same goes with for voice, for data as well, but here the range will be 12.50.11. okay, goes to exit. Okay, as you know, now that we have defined the DHCP server, we also need to configure its port. So go into configuration, go into the interface, first Ethernet /0/0, IP address 12.12-50.1, sorry 50.2 with 24-bit mask. Exit. Okay, so now that we have configured DHCP and CME router, let's see, can we able to ping 12.12.50.1. let's see. Now we can't able to ping because we have not defined any routes between these routers. So as we can see that we have defined the DHCP pools. So let's see, show run section DHCP. Okay, as you can see that we have defined the excluded addresses with the device pool of voice and device pool of data, and we also not able to communicate with CME router, which means that we have not defined the IP routes. One more important thing is that in device pool voice, we says that whenever the phone goes to the DHCP router to get the IP addresses, it also gets the TFTP server address as well. So we have not defined the voice, we have not defined the option 150 under the voice. So we do it now. Goes into configuration, config T, goes to IP DHCP pool voice. Here we define option 150. You can define more options, but the options which we use is option 150 is define the IP address of the TFTP server which lies on the CME router, which has the IP address of 12.12.10.1. okay, sorry, IP, yes. Now if you look there in under the voice pool, we define the option 150 and the TFTP IP address. Okay, now we will configure the IP route. Okay, So in order to reach 12.12.10.0, we use 24-bit mask, which uses 12.12.50.1, which is this IP addresses. So I mean to say is that if you want to go to this, we have to use this interface as dot interface. Okay, we have defined the routes. Now let's see, can we able to ping 12.12.50.1? No, still we can't able to ping. Let's see, can we able to ping 10.1? No, still it can't be reached. Let's try on CME router. Ping 12.12.50.2. Still we can't able to ping. So the reason why we can't able to ping is we have not defined port fast Ethernet 0/1. Its mode is access VLAN mode. Access VLAN 50. Okay, that's done. Now let's see, can we able to ping now from CME router 50.2. Oh, we can't, still we can't able to ping. It takes a time to get configured. Let's go on to the switch to show VLAN S. Yes, we have defined 0/1 VLAN 50. Since the switches take times to identify the VLANs, so let's see now. Yes, I can able to ping a CME interface with data VLAN. Now that we can able to ping DHCP from DHCP to CME router. Let's see, can we able to ping from CME router to, yes, we can able to ping from CME router to DHCP as well. Now that the configuration is done, let's see what the output is on switch 2. We have not defined any VLANs on switch 2, and we see that by use of VTP trunks, it have learned two VLANs from switch 1, voice and data VLAN. And next step, we will configure fast Ethernet 0/1, fast Ethernet 0/2, fast Ethernet 0/3, and fast Ethernet 0/4 to the access mode, and we define that access mode and give it to VLAN 50, which is the data VLAN. Once this configuration is done, okay, let me bring up